Hi guys, and welcome to today's Semrush webinar, where I'm joined by Claire Drumond. But first, before we start anything, just want to wish you guys a happy holiday. I know it's an international holiday over there. I'm not going to try and pronounce the wording because I'm sure you already struggle to understand the accent, but I hope you're all having a good day off. But as I said, we have the Semrush conference in India on the 5th of December, which you can all buy tickets to, still get the best possible prices. There will be a link in the live YouTube chat for you to be able to look at all the speakers and everything else and be able to get the best deal on a ticket. But in preparation for that particular conference, we have another one of the speakers, and that is Claire Drumond. Claire, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So for anyone who's unaware of who you are, do you want to just give the audience a bit of background about what you do, where you work, all of that stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So I work for Atlassian, which is the company that makes Jira, Bitbucket. We also have Trello and a few other tools. And I run the content strategy and distribution for Jira and Bitbucket. And I've been there for about 4.5 years and do everything from SEO to content marketing to product marketing, different things. Like we're just basically focused on growing the funnel through content is my charter, basically.
Sounds like a tough task. Yeah, content is never easy. I know always people are complaining about even where to find good content writers. So for you to build all of that kind of stuff up for the two projects must be a lot of hard work. I can only imagine.
Yeah, we have. It's actually really. It is hard to find subject matter experts that can write really compelling content. But the good news is there's a lot of people in the company that are really eager. So it's more about like finding those people and then giving them the platform to write really good evergreen content that is also SEO optimized, because that's really important. So.
It is. But we will go into the questions just shortly with Claire. Just before we do, we are giving again away a free ticket to the conference in December. And as usual, you have to retweet with the reason why you want to come to the conference. Again, there will be a link in the live YouTube chat. If you want to take advantage of getting a free ticket, make sure that you put the best possible or the most crazy answer in there. Whatever it is, just make sure that you stand out from the rest of the crowd, and Semrush will announce the winner of that ticket over the next few days, as I'm sure they always do every week anyway. So make sure you do that, and Olga will put the link in the YouTube chat just now. Now, before we go into, I'm going to start talking to Claire. If you guys have got any questions you want to talk to Claire about, pick her brains, whatever it's going to be, make sure you put your questions in the YouTube chat. We will ask as many of the questions as we can at the end of the webinar, and take advantage of Claire's knowledge and experience when it comes to content marketing. But Claire, how do you want to work this? You've got a short presentation?
No, let's Q&A.
Just go over the questions. Yeah, that's cool. So, how did you become a content marketer in IT? How did that start? Or how would someone get started?
Yeah, well, I can tell you a little bit about my journey and maybe give some tidbits of advice, because I certainly didn't seek out being a content marketer for an IT company when I was in school. That was not the dreams of little Claire. What I really wanted to do was to be a writer. And I studied journalism when I was in school. And it was a really great thing to study because at the time it was kind of like at the end of newspapers as the main channel for journalists to go into. And it was the rise of obviously the space that we're in now, which is a digital, online marketing world. And I kind of saw that change happening. So I really wanted to jump on the web trend, I guess, and taught myself how to code and built websites. So that was kind of how the transition between journalism and tech happened. So to be a content marketer, I think those are the two things that you have to have. Like, you have to have a passion for storytelling, but you also have to have a passion for analytics and data and tech, basically. Tech being anything from websites to product development, because anybody that does content marketing will tell you that it's half science and half art. And I think that I kind of just naturally had that passion because I wanted to know if the stories that I was telling actually impacted people and actually made it into the hands of the right people, which is what kind of fueled the next wave of my career, which is really about, the journey and mapping buyer journeys and making sure that people are able to like find the right thing at the right time. So that was kind of my experience. And then I would say advice is like, make sure that you are, if you want to be a content marketer, that you really, really care about the story that you tell. And that is a craft that you have to build over time, and it takes a lot of practice.
And out of curiosity, this is my question: what did little Claire see herself doing when you were younger? I know that you done journalism, but surely the dream was to be like a fashion blogger or something a bit more interesting to what you actually like.
Yeah. I then and now want to be a fiction writer. And I would love it if I could make a living doing that. So I'm trying to do both things now.
Fiction writers, interesting. As I say, everyone has different passions, and I think it would be great if you could work in an industry where you are passionate about it. Not that you're not passionate about IT, but I thought I'd ask that anyway. So, tell us about journalism versus content marketing. What are the differences or the pain points or whatever?
Yeah, so I think the biggest difference between journalism and content marketing is that content marketing, at the end of the day, you're trying to sell something, and it's inherently biased. I know that especially at Atlassian, we really care a lot about teaching people concepts like Agile or Git or continuous delivery, because that will help them in their professional development, no matter what tool they use. And I don't know if that's totally unique. I want to believe that other companies have that same passion, but my team in particular is a lot more focused on kind of the teaching of craft and making teams really good at their jobs. Like I said, regardless of the tools that they use. But content marketing in general is all part of a larger funnel that's funneling you into something, like into some action that you want your customer or potential customer to take. Journalism, on the other hand, is closer to what I was kind of describing. It's like about informing the public, and the mission is informing the public in the least biased way possible with the most accurate, fact-checked information that you can. And there's like a whole code of ethics that goes into journalism that, back when I was studying journalism and I had, jobs in the industry, the fact-checking part was just as important as the actual storytelling part. And I think that, that's a difference, but also something that you really have to remember when you do content marketing. You can't just make up stats. You can't just, you can say exaggerated terms about like what you're trying to sell, but at the end of the day, it has to be true, and you have to be able to back it up, especially in today's world where social media is like all over it. You can't, you can't just make it up. So I think, at the end of the day, it's all storytelling. So it's not, two totally different things, but journalism, is the mission of journalism is different than the mission of content marketing.
Interesting. And I'm sure we do, we laughed there when we said the job is not to lie. You see some outrageous journalism out there that has to be lies. And some of them anyway, some of the stuff I see, but hey ho, that's a different argument.
I'm like, I'm in the US right now, so I'm just going to keep it.
So how do you change the IT environment by publishing the Agile newsletter?
Yeah, so we have a newsletter that I've managed for about 3.5 years that has over 2 million subscribers. And this newsletter has grown pretty exponentially. And I think it's for a few reasons. One, I think, due to the nature of our content, which I believe is, and from the feedback that we've gotten from readers, is that it's like really informative. It's human language. It's not, overly full of jargon, which you can definitely fall into that trap, especially when it comes to Agile, which is like a very jargony industry. So we really try to keep it simple and keep it human so that, your grandmother or maybe your mom could understand. And so the newsletter that we've built goes out every month, and it really is the fuel for the content. So the content is probably more the centerpiece. The newsletter is more of like a distribution method for us. But it's done some really interesting things that I didn't expect. So instead of it just being like an email that you blast out, we've tested it, we've optimized that newsletter to a degree that now it's almost like a perfect newsletter, if you will. The click-through rate is the highest that it can be. And it goes into and it points to a site that we have that we call the Agile Coach. And the idea is that we highlight a new article every month that then leads you into other articles. So you never just go to a blog post and then that's it and you click out. You go into an article and then there's a whole list of other things that you can go into and explore and learn. And that kind of journey is really crucial to the strategy. And I think one of the main reasons why this newsletter is really important is it really like drives people into an experience that helps them with their jobs. And there's another aspect of it that I think has been interesting that we kind of experimented into, was that it really fuels conversation on social media around the articles or the titles of the content. And that's sparked by, incentives. We say like, hey, if you tweet this newsletter out, we'll, for the every 100th person gets swag, which everybody loves swag like so much. So it's good incentive.
Yeah.
But we've had some really interesting conversations on social media that have been sparked by the newsletter, where we're working and literally have to stop everything to jump in on Twitter and respond. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
It's a nice problem to have though, when you have to stop everything and deal with the stuff going on in social media. So it clearly shows that it's working well. Yeah. So
I guess one more thing that I think this audience might find interesting about the newsletter. From an SEO perspective, our goal internally, besides like the nice goals of teaching people how to be great at their job, like we also want our content to rank. And we, it's really important to us for that to happen. And the newsletter obviously wouldn't directly impact that, because that's not how it works. But the sharing aspect of the newsletter, where people go on social media and then they forward the newsletter to other people, or they share it in their Twitter or LinkedIn feed, that is what's fueling the SEO and the ranking for our articles. Not completely, but definitely gives us a boost. And that was an unintended consequence of the newsletter that I thought was really fascinating.
Yeah, it's certainly triggers all those user signals and everything else on your time on website and all the stuff that kind of indirectly helps your rankings. So yeah, good job. Next is work agile or live agile.
So for those that aren't familiar with agile, it's a methodology that was written about 15 years ago by a group of people who wanted to change the way that work was getting done. And they felt like waterfall software development wasn't delivering value to customers fast enough, meaning that you were disconnected through this very long process of development from the idea to actually delivering value to your customers. So the Agile methodology, actually the Agile Manifesto is what they wrote, and it's really just a set of principles. And if you look at those principles, it's really, really simple. It's about better collaboration between the business and software developers. It's about breaking down silos, not working, on your one thing and not talking to another team, and then finding out later that if you had talked to that other team, you would have learned something that would have made your product better. And it's about taking customer feedback and iterating on that. That is, and then one other principle, which is like taking hypotheses and testing it and allowing yourself to learn while you're testing. And essentially, like it's about teamwork and the scientific method. I mean, nothing totally new. It's just a way to frame how you think about software development. So for working agile, I'm not a believer in teams, being pushed into some framework that doesn't fit them. I want teams to work the way that they see fit. Agile is about learning what works and doesn't work for your team. To allow you to be really high performing, you have to constantly check in to see how you're doing and be open to making changes. And that's how I live my life. So, I want to be open. I don't want to get stuck in my ways. Yes, routine is great. And there's a lot of research that says, routine is actually what helps drive innovation, because it cuts down a lot of the external factors that come in. But which is what has made Agile so popular, I think. It gives you this like frame of reference for innovating. So yeah, it's the same. It's like Agile at work and Agile in life forever.
It's I had never heard of it before, believe it or not, until I started working more with Semrush. I think they have a big, focus towards this whole agile way of working, and it seems to work very well for them too. So yeah, long may it continue. I think it's a great idea that you're not pushed into a box and you're not sitting doing stuff that you're maybe uncomfortable with, or, because you don't want to say anything or don't have a say. So that's great way of working. So what are your personal growth hacking techniques?
Yeah, there's a couple. So I work on Jira, which is a product that keeps you really organized. And being productive and being organized is something that I get really excited about and I love, which is one of the reasons why I love my job. Jira and Trello. Trello is another product that we have that's it's basically like a simple Kanban board. So in order to make sure that I'm getting work done and being productive and actually providing value in my work, I rely really heavily on our tools. And I can show you my Trello board, like how I kind of organize my work. But before that, I'll tell you my most basic growth hacking tip is good old fashioned pen and paper. I wake up every single day and I sit in front of a piece of paper and I write down every single thing that is either giving me anxiety or that I'm thinking about that I have to get done. And I go through it and then I stack rank it like 1, 2, 3. What are the 3 things that I want to get done today? and then I look at it. I have my coffee. I think about it, and that's how I start my day. So if you saw my notebook, you would think I was crazy because it's like the same thing every day. It's like, do the laundry, go to get the groceries, like make sure you call so and so. But that's what helps keep my mind, focused and decluttered. But at work, I have a different strategy, and I will share that with you now. So sneak peek into my, this is my personal Trello board for work. And if you can see the workflow here, backlog is a list of things that that don't necessarily have like a time on them, but something that I want to get done within the next, quarter. They may be really big that I still have to like figure out what that actually means. Like you can see, figure out next steps. It's more, and then the purple is something that would require deep work, meaning like, I don't want anybody to distract me. I need like a couple hour block of just pure thinking about this problem. This week is, you have to be really diligent not to like overload the column for this week because you really can't, there's really only so many things that you can get done in a week. And so it doesn't get pulled from the backlog until I really understand the scope of the work. And then today you can see I'm doing the Semrush webinar. But today I try to keep it between 3 to 5 items, but closer to 3 items because I'm a team lead and I'm in a lot of meetings and I, you can't like functionally get a lot of things done in one day. But, and I think there's actually some research that 3 is like kind of the max that you should even focus on. And so I also like to keep things like email so-and-so or go through, go through notes. I like to keep little tasks in here as well because you get like a little bit of an adrenaline rush when you go in and you say, okay, done. And then you move it to the done column and you're like, woohoo, celebrate. And then there's the pen, and the pen is like something that that is ongoing. It's blocked. I can't move the work forward anymore. Somebody else has to do something, but it's not done. So I keep the pen for that kind of thing. And then would love to if is something that I added this year where it's like, man, these are my good ideas. If only I had time, then I could go back and kind of pull from there.
It looks like a fairly busy schedule there. But I think you have to do that. As you say, decluttering your mind or getting rid of the stress is important. I think we had an event with Semrush and we got a guy called Dave Allen to come to the event. That was, get things out of your mind and put them in tools, whether it's Trello or many other tools out there, because your mind can't really hold any more than 3 or 4 things unless then you start forgetting stuff and become non-productive. So it's good to see that you've got a process in place to kind of ease that stress level. It's always important. So what are your favorite sources for professional growth?
I'm a big podcast person. So I could name, 15 that I love, but my favorite right now is The Hidden Brain. It's a podcast about an hour long that talks about different growth hacking techniques, different productivity techniques, and talks about like how your brain actually works. So I listened to one recently that was about deep work, which is a book that was written by somebody that I can't remember, Calvin, anyway. And the idea of deep work is about how there are so many notifications. You're on Slack, you're on email, you have text message, you have Twitter. There's so many notifications and different things going on in your life that you have to really quiet that noise in order to actually get work done. And there's this feeling that you have where if you're not on Slack, you're not working, or, it doesn't look like you're available, but that actually is counterproductive because being on Slack distracts you, throughout the day if you're not really structured about it. And so that's something that I learned from The Hidden Brain. There's also Freakonomics is another podcast that I love that did a whole segment on productivity, and that talks about like different research and productivity thoughts and ideas that I've carried with me. That was like a few years ago. So I found out later in life that I learned through listening much more than I learned through reading. And so I've just found that podcasts are really like my jam, and I listen to it when I run. So it's kind of good.
It's I'm the exact same. I'm much more of either a video or a listening person rather than reading books. I just get bored so quickly reading a book. It's just like, this is terrible. So
I feel like podcasts are great, or audiobooks are great too, because you can kind of multitask. Like you can listen to them while you're on your commute. Whereas like reading feels like a lot of time spending looking at something. And if I'm going to read, I'm probably not going to read a book about work or productivity. I'd rather read something else. So.
Yeah, it's but each to their own. I'm sure there is a lot of people out there who do read up on books as well, and I'm sure there's a lot of good books out there as well that talk about all of this stuff as well. I know the guy I mentioned earlier, David Allen, has books out, and yeah, each to their own. But but what we'll do is we will go into the question and answers from the general public, and we've got them starting to come through. So guys, any other questions, make sure you ask them. We will go through these over the next 20-25 minutes and ask as many as we possibly can. So Claire, how can I use my old content for SEO from blogs which they've written in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that we have built into our content strategy. So I'll just tell you kind of the workflow that we use for this. So we basically will look at how that old content is performing now. So what are the search queries that are driving traffic to that content? And you can find that out through various SEO tools. We have some in-house tools, and I've used lots of different things. So you can figure out what the queries are that are driving traffic to that content, or you can just do good old-fashioned Google search. And then you want to figure out what the opportunity is. Are you going to pivot that content to talk about something else? Or do you see that like there's a trend that it's ranking for a keyword or a set of keywords that you didn't expect? And then you're going to want to re-optimize that content for the new keyword that you've decided. Re-optimize meaning change the meta description, change the title tags, update the actual content in the blog post or the article, so that so that it's optimized for this new, fresh view. And also, it's really important that you look at the URL. You don't necessarily want to move it if it's performing well. You could move it to a new spot that maybe has more domain authority or something like that. If that seems like, at the time, if it seems like that's a good strategy, it really just depends on like the user journey that you're trying to build with that content. So those are kind of like the simple things that you can do. Some other stuff that we've been trying recently is actually turning old content into video. And then we put the video, like meaning, and if you go to Atlassian.com/agile/scrum, you'll see there's like a whole series of articles about Scrum, which is a framework in Agile that we've added video to. So we've basically taken that content and put it into video format and then added it to the content. And Google really loves it when you update old content. It shows that you still care about it and that you're still working on it. So yeah, so that's kind of like the basics for how to do that.
Cool. Next question is, what are the best content strategies to target business-to-business customers?
Yeah, so it really depends on how you go to market for B2B. There's basically like the traditional model, which is if you have a sales team, you'll create demand, and the content strategy will be based on something that is like a webinar or a white paper or something that you put behind a gate. Gate being a email, like you have to put in your email in order to get that content. You can probably optimize that landing page for SEO if you want to target, say, change management, and you have a webinar on change management. You can, optimize that landing page. It might not rank, but you can at least give it a good try. So the traditional B2B content strategy would be get somebody in, and then you put them into a CRM and you nurture them throughout the sales process until they become a hot lead, at which point you would hand them to a sales team. Now, Atlassian doesn't do it that way. All of our content is free for the public. We don't ask for your email or anything like that. You can get access to all kinds of information that normal B2B companies would put behind a gate. So another website that you can look at, or just Google Atlassian Team Playbook. It's basically a series of workshops that you can run with your team. Now, this content strategy, the way that Atlassian does it is it's very much based off of like SEO or organic searches to find the content. So the way that we do it is figure out what searcher intent is around different areas in the buying journey, and then we basically optimize the content based off of that searcher intent. So it's either gated or not gated. We don't gate it.
Cool.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. No, good answer.
If you have a follow-up, let me know, and maybe I can dig in more.
Cool. So next question is, how do you and the team go about gathering feedback from customers to validate your assumptions about content and the platforms and mediums that you use to drive or shift that strategy?
Yeah, a few things that we do. Number one, we have so we use social media really heavily for validating feedback on content. We have a really active community, so oftentimes we'll write something and be like, "What do you think?" So we get feedback that way. We have private groups, so there's like people who are friendlies that we have developed relationships with. Maybe they've written for us in the past, or they've expressed interest in our products and helping us. So there's like a group of people that we'll go to and ask for feedback before we publish it, or we'll even ask them to contribute to the piece and incentivize them in some way. And then the best way is actually conferences. We go to conferences and we'll have like a concept. So for example, we did a campaign around a retrospective on Agile practices to see how people were using the Agile methodology in their day-to-day work. And we weren't sure how this was going to go. So we went to a conference an Agile conference, very meta. Um, and and we actually ran the retro on Agile in real time before we did it in social media. And we asked people, give us feedback in these 3 columns. Here's a sticky note. Tell us what you think. And it was the interactions in the conference were fantastic. But then when we took it to social media, it was also very people were very engaged in it. So talking to customers in content and in product development is like the best way to validate your ideas. By far.
I think what you're saying as well in terms of, conferences and whatnot, I think it's invaluable, just some of the things that you pick up just when having a beer with people and stuff like that. It's, ideas, or someone just says a very small thing. And I think there's a lot to be said for networking, talking to other people within the, similar industries and stuff like that. So I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Next question is how to measure the brand awareness.
Yeah. Also a great question and also hard. So there's a few tools that you can measure brand awareness with, but you have to take it for a grain of salt, because social media does not equal brand awareness. So the amount of impressions that you get from a hashtag doesn't mean that you are, and then you get a bunch of engagement in that campaign, whether it's paid or not, doesn't necessarily mean that your brand has saturated the market. It could be the concept. It could have nothing to do with your brand. It could be the timing. There's a lot of other factors that go into something like that. But we'd still do that because you can measure over time the lift in awareness. But actually what we do and have done with brand campaigns is before we run the campaign, we'll run a survey with people who are not customers of ours. And they'll go out and ask like a few simple questions. Have you heard of Atlassian? Have you heard of Jira? What do you think? What's your sentiment? That kind of thing. That'll give you a baseline. And probably a number. And then, throughout the campaign, maybe every quarter or every couple months, we'll run the same survey and see if it has impacted a lift. So that's one like really like tactical way to measure brand awareness over time, is just like regular surveys. And then another way to do that is really through search volume for your branded terms. And you can kind of see if those terms increase in search volume over time as well. And then finally, I know Google Trends is not, it's not like a science, but it definitely gives you a good idea of a lift. So it may be too small for like your brand, depending on what your brand is, but like for larger concepts, say, again, you wanted to be a thought leader in change management, and you wanted to see how that was trending. Is that still a thing that people are searching for? You can use Google Trends to kind of compare and see where you stack up on that.
Nice. Great tips there again. So I want to, make sure the audience are asking questions. They do seem to be quiet and enjoying their holidays today. But in terms of content, I just want to ask you a couple of questions on it, and hopefully it benefits the audience anyway. But in terms of pain points and as we said, the process of getting content done, is that all done purely in-house, or do you outsource any of it at all?
No, we outsource some of it. So we have my team I can speak to probably better than some of the other content teams at Atlassian. But my team has like a healthy mix of both in-house and outsourced resources. So one resource that we outsource is actually video production to a company that I'm going to plug right now because I love working with them, called Shootsta. And I'll actually be talking about this at the conference, is how we use them to do video at scale. It's really, really hard and really expensive to do like really high quality video at scale. And they've helped us kind of overcome that, because you can basically create your and then send it through like this hub that they've built, and then they'll turn the video, the post-production of the video around in 24 hours. So you can really like rapidly iterate on videos, and the quality is great, and you have an editor that you work with. So so that's one team that we outsource. We also have a couple writers, but I haven't been able to crack the idea of doing one of those agencies where the writers are like always available, that you can just like pick a writer and like it's constant. Our content is really deep, and you have to be an expert in the topic. It's like continuous delivery. It's, you know, like not everybody can write about that.
Yeah.
And we want it to be really good. We don't want it to just be SEO content. We want it to have the Atlassian voice. We want it to be, you know, really helpful. Like we want to validate, like that person asked if it's good or not. So we only have like a few external writers that we use, but we engage with them like over time. Like we've had, you know, years long relationships with those people.
No, it's good to hear that even companies of your stature, well, says you still have the same pain points that other people have in terms of, you know, just getting, you know, a service or someone just that can give you continuous good quality content. But I think we're all looking for something that's not there. But that leads on to the next question. What do you need to know about a content piece before you start writing?
Yeah. Trying to think if I have an example to show you. Well, I'll just I wish I could pull it up because I have a template. But anyway, the things that you need to know before you start writing content is, of course, who is this for? And what is your goal? Your goal could be as simple as, I want to get this into a newsletter because I need to inform, you know, 100 people about this new feature. Or it could be as broad as, I want this content to rank in the top 3 for Kanban because we are the experts in this topic and we need to make sure that that's where it sits. And so definitely want to make sure you understand what your goal is before you start writing the content. The other thing is that, like, what is the intent of the person that's going to read that content? Is the intent that they are going to learn something and then remember that you wrote it? Or is the intent that you want them to actually click like a try button and try your product? I'll say in my experience that somebody reading a piece of content and then trying your product is rare. And I don't know that it's the best way to measure the success of content. I think content is much more of like an awareness thing, and it's something that it should be seen as like a benefit that you give to your customers, a value that you provide to your customers, not necessarily just a sales tool. So I think figuring those things out before you write a piece of content is really important. And then the last thing that we do is make sure that we understand what other people have said about this topic. So we go through and do some competitive research. If you're going to write about Kanban, what do other people in the industry write about when they talk about Kanban? Can you quote those people? Do you agree with it? Is there something that you don't agree with that you can say to make your content piece a little bit more interesting? And you can do that through tools, or you like SEO Moz is a great tool to use for competitive research. Or you can use, you can just go on Google and just search around and look on social media and see, you know, what people are saying. I always do that competitive research before I write something because I think it gives you a lot of empathy for what's being said in the industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. And another question, what are the worst mistakes in content marketing that we all need to know and avoid?
Don't write something for the sake of writing it, would be number one. Meaning, don't outsource it to somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Check all the SEO boxes, publish the piece, and hope for the best. like you really need to truly believe in what you've written and be able to stand by it. I think that's a big mistake that people make a lot. They're more focused on like rapid content production than they are on quality, and I think that's a big mistake. Number one. What's number two? 3 mistakes. Measuring content incorrectly. I think I talked about this a little bit earlier, but don't measure content for getting people to click and try your products. I don't think that's what it's for. As a storyteller, you're degrading the quality of the content by looking at it that way. There are other better ways to get people to try your products. I think you should see content as a way to grow brand awareness. So definitely measurement is a big one. And then, number 3, I would say, don't think that content is just written articles or blogs. That's not at all what it is. Like, content is a slew of different medium. It's all kinds of different things. Like, it can be video, it can be just small social media posts, it can be this webinar. Content is pervasive across all of our digital properties. And I think we often fall into the trap of thinking that content is really just blog posts and infographics. And I don't think that that's actually true. It's the easiest thing to measure. It's the easiest thing to produce, very low friction, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the only thing.
Next question. Is there a checklist of basic things that need to be done when starting a piece of content?
Yeah, I think I kind of talked about this already. Let me see if I can add any different color here. Checklist, goal, who's it for? I don't know if
you covered it with the what do you need to know about a content piece.
Okay.
I think, but everyone will have a different.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Everyone will have different ideas or checklists that they want to go through, but I think you covered it pretty well when you need to know who you're writing for and the subject choice and everything else. I mean, it really is as simple as that. I don't think there's any other special tricks that are out there to be able to write content. You just got to do the basics right and do it in the right tone of voice for that company and everything else that goes along with it that you've already said there. So that is your
here's a new. I was going to say one thing that I can tell you about regarding checklists is that I think we often get stuck in the content operations side, and I think you can actually create a single workflow for all of your content, which we do. We use Trello and Jira to do that. And this is the checklist for when you actually produce the content is like research, competitive research, making sure that a technical expert reviews that content so that you actually can stand behind it and make sure that it's really good. Making sure that it goes through the design process, making sure that it's been copy edited. All of those things we explicitly say in our workflow. And I think that is just as important as starting a piece of content, is knowing what the process is going to be in order to get that content published. So, yeah.
Cool. And the next question is, you have fantastic content on Agile and your tools. Have you put together content on content marketing itself?
You're looking at it. It's funny that you mentioned that somebody asked that, and thank you for that. I will take that feedback to the team. They'll be really pleased that you said that, because we work really hard on that Agile content. We have some basic stuff on content marketing, but I personally would love to do more to talk about it, because I think our content marketing at Atlassian is really interesting and unique because we don't have that sales model, and it really drives most of the traffic to our sites. So I can't really give you a good reference right now, but maybe stay tuned and follow me on social media and you'll see more stuff coming.
Yeah, I suppose
Yeah.
you probably wouldn't do it at the moment unless you were doing it as a service. But I think you obviously, because of what you're doing and everything else, it would make certainly a lot of people happy to be able to, follow up on that and see what you've got to say about it. But what we'll do is we will just wrap up now because the questions look as if they are drying up. But just a reminder, guys, make sure that you did retweet with your reason why you want to come to the conference in India. Also, if you want to just get a ticket and come and see the speakers that are going to be there, which is going to also include Claire, myself, and many other speakers talking about a wide range of subjects, then it's going to be a fantastic conference. And you're probably not going to get all of those people together again in India. So make sure you do 100% get yourself a ticket because it is going to be a truly amazing event. And I look forward to seeing everyone out there. But thanks again, Claire, for joining us today. If anyone does want to follow up, follow you or get in touch with you or whatever, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, the best place to chat with me is on Twitter. Definitely send me your questions, and I'm happy to share more about what we do for content marketing and Agile and different processes. So thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to go to India. It's going to be my first time. Atlassian just opened an office about a year ago in Bangalore, and so I'm going to go check that out and meet up with some of my teammates. So yeah, super excited to meet people and have a new experience. So yeah, thank you.
I'm looking forward to it. But thanks again, everyone, for taking the time to come out here on your holiday, and we will see you in India in the near future. So thank you.
Awesome.